Ina mana, ina reo, ira rangatira mā tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Morena and welcome, it's wonderful to be with you this morning. I'd like to start by acknowledging you and the absolutely critical part you play in the system of education and vocational training. One of the most confusing and challenging times in the lives of young people is navigating the end of school and the transition into work or further study. You play a key role in supporting rangatahi through those decisions. So I'll begin with a huge thanks to you for what you do, and I'd suggest that you give yourselves a round of applause because it is absolutely fantastic. You'll know that vocational education and training is undergoing major change. This work started in 2019 when Education Minister Chris Hipkins announced a proposal to reform vocational education and training. This is known as ROVE. One of the central parts of the whole thing is the creation of the Pukenga. Today is a timely opportunity to talk a bit about where we're up to, what we're doing, and most importantly, what we hope this will mean for you and the rangatahi that you support. ROVE aims to create a strong, unified vocational education system that's sustainable and fit for the future of work. A system that delivers what learners, employers, communities need to be successful. A system that puts learners and employers at the centre. Industries and their employers have been asking for a stronger voice in vocational education for a long time. Through workforce development councils, they can now directly influence the standards and qualifications in their industry in a way that they haven't before. Workforce development councils focus on industry-specific skill requirements, and they will ensure that these are reflected in vocational qualifications included in vocational education and in training. They will work with their industries to develop and maintain a strategic view of the skills their industries need now and in the future. Regional skills leadership groups bring a regional perspective and consider the local skills and labour market needs of their areas. These independent advisory groups are locally based and regionally led. Their job is to identify and support better ways to meet the future skills and workforce needs in their regions. Our job at Te Pukenga is to deliver the training and to support our konga as they learn so that they qualify with the skills that employers are looking for and so that the regions have the pipeline of skilled people that they need. Te Pukenga is being created by bringing together 16 former institutes of technology and polytechs with 8 industry training organisations, and that gives you a sense of what we are doing as we bring them all together. Today, our network supports 205,000 learners, and around half of those are learning while they work in workplaces all over the motu. Te Pukenga currently has more than 8,000 full-time employees, delivers 2,500 programs that lead to 1,251 different qualifications, has around $2.2 billion worth of buildings, land and infrastructure, and a turnover of over $1 billion a year. So clearly we're not a small undertaking. Indeed, Te Pukenga is already the world's 35th largest provider of tertiary education. So we are a very different beast than all of the individuals that are coming together to create Te Pukenga. And it is that scale that should be absolutely transformative in terms of what we are able to do. Te Pukenga is guided by a charter that's set out in the Education and Training Act. In a nutshell, we must deliver a national network of provision, but be regionally and locally responsive. We have to give effect to te tiriti. That is a profoundly new and higher standard across the education sector. Give effect to is not have regard to. It's a very different proposition. We must operate in partnership with iwi, hapu, communities, employers, industry and unions in order to be effective. We must be strongly linked with the workforce development councils and the 15 regional skills leadership groups. We know that we have to empower akonga and kaimahi with equity at the heart of our operations and provide up-to-date and future-focused education and training. We need to offer nationally consistent programs, allowing seamless movement across the network between work and study and across all modes of learning. And this means that as we bring together 24 organisations, we are absolutely committed to building an organisation and a way of working that gives effect to te tiriti. It also means that we have an absolutely relentless commitment to equity. This is the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we have to build something profoundly different in a system that has for way too long failed very, very significant groups of learners across the motu. This is our opportunity to address systemic racism, to achieve equity for akonga, and to ensure that New Zealand has the skilled workforce that it needs. This, as I'm sure you're aware, is really challenging stuff. It puts Te Pūkenga at the cutting edge of what New Zealand is trying to do to address these profound and deep-seated issues. In 2021, akonga Māori had course completion rates 9 percentage points lower than non-Māori and non-Pacific learners. And for Pacific akonga, the course completion rate was more than 11 percentage points lower than non-Māori and non-Pacific learners. And compounding this, both Māori and Pacific peoples are far less likely to participate in vocational education or indeed tertiary education than the rest of the population. The equity imbalance must change, and doing so is an absolute bottom line for Te Pūkenga. Over the last year and a bit, we have systematically reviewed the ingredients necessary for learners to succeed. We've designed a new range of support mechanisms, including access to mental health services, all designed to help our learners and their whānau succeed. Through 2023, we will be progressively expanding the support we provide for learners as a part of our drive for equity. Our drive for equity will be reflected in a whole raft of other things, including the fundamental integration of the qualifications, which I'll talk about shortly. We'll be doing that at the same time as we bring together and integrate 24 proudly separate organisations and then transform the way in which we deliver vocational education. So if that sounds like a big undertaking, you're quite right, it is. This is the second largest merger and integration process going on in the country at the moment. The health reforms are bigger, and I'm grateful every day that people are not likely to die as a consequence of the decisions we make. But it's still absolutely profound in terms of what we're doing. For all learners, training needs to be available in a way that best suits them at any stage of their life, whether it's in a classroom or in a workplace or online. As a national organisation, we need to be able to deliver nationally consistent programs and find ways to meet the needs of learners and employers wherever they are. We started the integration process with many versions of just about every qualification or program you could think of. As I noted, 2,503 programs leading to 1,200 odd qualifications. By unifying these programs and the qualifications delivered across the motu, we can deliver consistency and we can make it flexible in a way that learners can move anywhere and between modes of learning. There is absolutely no reason why New Zealand needs to maintain, through the network of Polytechs, 10 separate Bachelor of Social Work programs or 13 separate Bachelor of Nursing qualifications. So we're working through that. We're hard at work bringing them together to have standard unified programs across all of Te Pūkenga, and the most significant early unification is for nursing, and which will be rolled out through the middle of 2023. Another major goal of the reform is to remove duplication and competition between vocational education providers. This will mean that we'll be able to avoid the cost of doing everything 24 times and just do it once. We've got a long way to go to get to that point. As you can imagine, at the moment we have 24 different finance systems, 24 payroll systems, and for those that were around as NovaPay was rolled out, you understand something of the challenge of how you might rationalise payroll systems. We have 24 learning management systems, 24 student management systems, and in fact 24 of just about everything that you could think of. We're now in a race to bring all of that together so that we can redirect the resources that currently are used to pay for 24 versions of the same thing, so that we can use that resource to support learners to be successful. As we bring 24 to one, we're adopting a learner-centred approach which will be experience-led and digitally enabled. This will challenge our pedagogy, and it will challenge some very deeply held ways of thinking and working. Merging and transforming 24 organisations is a major undertaking, but I need to be really clear that we're not creating a megapolytech, despite Stuff's persistence in calling us a megapolytech. That is not what we will be. Equally, we're not setting out to turn polytechs into industry training organisations. Our goal is to bring the very best of the industry training organisations and polytechs together in a way that is better and different to support employers, learners, and the communities that we serve. And we need to do that without disrupting learners as we make all of those changes. So again, it's complicated. 205,000 learners that are in our care that we need to look after and ensure that they are successful at the same time as we're doing all of this major change process. Another key feature of the ROVE process is a unified funding system that will significantly increase the funding that we receive to support in-work learning, and we need to respond to that. We will be actively working to get more employers engaged in supporting in-work learning. We'll also be exploring ways to broaden the range of qualifications that can be achieved through learning in work. And as an example, Otago Polytechnic has some really exciting degree-level apprenticeships in engineering. The connection to work and learning on the job is a really exciting future, and one that we need to take further as we can grow. Because if a learner can get degree-level qualifications and earn while they do it and benefit from the learning in the workplace, that's a game changer in terms of access to tertiary education and the qualifications that come with that. We need to really push that hard. Clearly, the changes that I've described will take some time. At this stage, we are in the fortunate space where everything that's shown on the slide has moved into Te Pukenga. We've passed the first hurdle of getting everybody into the whare, and now we can start the integration process. Outwardly, at this stage, the changes are fairly small. They will become more profound quite quickly. As you'll see on the slide, and as you'll see from Workplace Alley in the exhibitors hall outside, we've moved to co-branding as the first step of how we visibly bring Te Pukenga together. That approach will continue, and in time, you will end up with a very clear and unified branding that demonstrates Te Pukenga as the national network that it is. You may well have seen our advertising and advertising of our divisions. You'll have noticed that they are moving to a very similar look and feel that enables each of them to be seen as part of a family and to amplify their work together. But for the moment, all of our local people are still there doing what they previously did as they learn to come together and support you. So what that means most importantly is tomorrow and the next day, you can continue to engage with the same people that you have and ensure that you can sign or help learners move towards signing apprenticeship and learning agreements. You can help them into the local polytech and so on. But change will come. Our teams are there to work with you. The relationship you and your learners have with the local polytech and the industry training organisation won't change immediately. But over time, you will start to see changes as we operate as a single network. So what might you see in 2023? Secondary school students need to see a place where they can belong in vocational education. By putting akonga at the centre, we aim to do that. Access to high-quality vocational education will not only continue to exist for learners in regions, but it will grow and improve. This year, around 70% of our network have piloted 2 programs particularly aimed at supporting priority akonga as they stay in learning, so that they stay in learning. The whakawhanaungatanga for pre-start and tuakaina teina or peer mentoring pilots that have been rolled out across the country are all focused on establishing meaningful connections and creating a sense of belonging for akonga and their whānau from the beginning of the learner's journey with us. This means that connections start early, ideally well before their first day of learning. For 2023, we are focused on scaling up these initiatives and introducing them to the regions that don't yet have them, and ensure that we can now scale what we've learnt to make it nationally effective. Many of you will currently engage with Gateway Trades Academy or other programs that are available to you, and equally, there's a whole range of micro-credential programs, toolkits and resources that you currently engage with, and all of that will continue. Currently, there are more than 6,000 secondary students enrolled in Gateway Transitional Trades Academy processes, and there is enormous potential to go far further, and to use the scale that Te Pukenga has to bring that to more people for whom it will count. Another change that you will see is our really strong and increasing focus on work-based learning. For many learners, the ability to earn while they learn is essential. It enables them to contribute to their whānau, and for many, it suits the way that they learn. Across work-based training organisations that are now part of Te Pukenga, we have 100,000 odd learners and tens of thousands of employers currently engaged in work-based learning across hundreds of different industries. We expect that to grow. Just right at the moment, every employer is struggling to find staff. We have a chronic labour shortage. We will be doing our best to help to work, to forge the connections, and quite possibly to find ways to get people out of learning face-to-face and into in-work learning if that suits them better for their journey. All businesses train their people, but they don't always formalise the training. As industry and business responds to the labour shortage, the changing nature of work and the competition for good staff, we expect that to change. Our challenge and our opportunity is to help to make that happen. This is probably going to mean that we will unbundle and repackage what we already offer so that it better meets the needs of learners and employers. We're going to do that by listening quite hard to both groups. I also acknowledge that there's a cohort of learners who have traditionally been underserved by vocational education and training. It's in all of our interests to work harder to attract and retain Māori, Pacific and disabled learners so that they can benefit, so that they can realise their dreams and aspirations. We must deliver ways of learning that much better meet their needs. And we're focused on that. Which brings me to the way in which we work with you. You'll be used to each of the organisations that we have brought together and are shown on the slide competing for your attention and competing to attract people to their industry or to their institution. Through 2023, that will change. We are now all Te Pukenga, so we won't be competing with each other. We'll be shifting to equip everybody across the whole of the group, everybody that works with you, with sufficient understanding of the breadth of what Te Pukenga is and what Te Pukenga has to offer. That will shift us to supporting the learner-centred choice rather than institution-focused competition for learners. That's how we put the learner at the centre from the beginning of their engagement with us. It's how we support you to do what you do to guide people to make the choices that will work for them. It's going to take us a while to get there, but we know that if we put learners first, we can be more helpful, we can better support the work you do, and everyone will get better outcomes. So where to from here? We're in the midst of a very complex transition, and we won't get it right every time. But you have my assurance that we want to listen and we want to work with you to make a difference for akonga and for employers. We equally know that change will be continuous. There will be no point in the future where Te Pukenga says, we're done with change, we think we've done everything. Will not happen. We must continue to innovate, to flex and adapt and shift based on the needs of our communities, our employers and all of Aotearoa. I'd like to close by the way I started, thanking you for what you do, for the pivotal role that you play in helping young people make life-changing choices. And I'd also like to encourage you to go and see all of our colleagues in Work-Based Learning Alley, and you can't miss it. It's the very green thing right in the centre of the display. Thank you. Very happy to answer any questions if you have them, if we have time.
Yeah, just obviously we've got the microphones up the front here and there's some halfway down too, I think. So we've got a couple of minutes, so if you have a question that you'd like to ask, step forward and ask it now.
You've let me off. Oh, there's one down here. I was going to say you've let me off very lightly.
Do you mind just taking the microphone? So, thank you.
I've worked for Alternative Education in Christchurch, and one of the things we've seen over the last few years is the disappearing act of all of the foundation courses for our young people. So essentially what happens is they have to get to a level 2 before they can actually come into any tertiary sector. What that now creates is our young people looking for work at 16. And we're looking at recruitment agencies, etc., rather than the tertiary sector. Is there any view in the fact that we may have more foundation courses? You talk about offering opportunities for those that are the least fortunate in our social sector, but there doesn't seem to be any movement towards that.
I would dearly like to be able to change that, and we have some live conversations within Te Pukenga and emerging with government, because in addition to the issue that you've identified, it's fairly clear that there is a profound and long tail of COVID amongst those that will be leaving secondary school with qualifications but not necessarily quite the depth of experience that they previously had, or those that have simply disappeared out of the system, and we need to find ways to engage. It's too soon for me to say anything more than we're working through what that might look like, and I know that the Ministry of Education is equally very troubled by that challenge. Te Pukenga is part of a complicated web of government agencies, so there are things that we can do within our own remit. There are other things that we would need to persuade the Tertiary Education Commission to fund differently, or indeed they'd fall within the Ministry of Education's remit, but we're trying to join those things and absolutely recognise we need to do profoundly different. And one of the other things that deeply concerns me is the number of learners who spend their year of free study filling up what they didn't get at secondary school before they can actually start what comes next in terms of tertiary study, and for me that's just wrong. Very good. Again, thank you. Wish you well for the rest of the conference, and I look forward to reporting in at some stage, or here's someone walking down the stairs with a question, perhaps, or leaving. No, just leaving. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Just following on from that last comment, when you're talking about gaps between courses, why aren't a lot of these courses teaching the knowledge actually on the course that the students need? Because that's the roadblock to a lot of student success, or even access to these courses.
Yeah, so there's a complicated web there of our the nature of the programs and the qualifications that have been designed are that we have inherited are not necessarily fit for purpose and need to change. And that's a significant role for the Workforce Development Councils in terms of how they look at what someone would need to know and understand to have the qualification and to be effective in the workplace. That's one of the things that we will be working through in the unification of programs. How do we change what we're doing so that it is more relevant and more direct? And you know, if you start me down the list, the catalogue of things that are not yet right, they go to our qualifications don't necessarily staircase. If you enrol for something that is ostensibly the same thing in Invercargill as in Auckland, you'll get a different experience and learn some very different things, and I'm not sure why. And it will cost a different amount of money to the learner. Our system currently is very poor at recognising prior learning. So if you are returning to the workforce, we're very poor at recognising what someone might have learnt previously in terms of how that could be counted towards a qualification. So retraining is very difficult and sticky. Yeah, we have so much to do to change. It's not going to be overnight. I think we've got a clear idea of the things that we need to focus on, and we're working as hard and as fast as we can to drive improvement.
And just one other thing, when will schools get this information coming in? Because a lot of the time, because you are going through flux, we were finding enrolments were coming out late. Our students weren't getting the information until, I think, the holidays of beginning of term 4, and they were preparing for exams as well. So there's a lot of things that are happening when people are making decisions and trying to support people through that process that weren't actually been happening on your side.
Yep.
And so we need actually a bit more dialogue to making sure that process is actually a bit smoother for the learner, but also for the staff that are trying to support the student, but also support the institutions that are serving them.
Yes, couldn't agree more, and my apologies that things have been a bit late this year. As you would have observed through the media, Te Pūkenga went through something of a restart when the previous chief executive left and I started, and we've done a whole lot of things to try and redirect and change and make up for time that was lost. One of the reasons that information was late around enrolments was we have been grappling with learner fees and how we move towards an integrated and national approach to what a learner would pay so that they pay the same thing for the same qualification irrespective of where they happen to be learning. That's one of the features of equity that we need to think our way through. Very good. I think this time it might actually be it, and I'll actually leave the stage. Thank you very much for your time this morning, and best wishes.